Good morning. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Good morning and happy Wednesday. Liz Live take two on this kind of strange and unpredictable Wednesday morning that we have going on here. Always little technical difficulties here and again, but welcome to Liz Live. If this is your first time watching, I am a marriage and family therapist and mental health counselor here in sunny Florida, and also worked for a number of years in Pennsylvania. And I have a live podcast 2 days a week, Wednesday and Saturday, live on YouTube and Facebook. And I have Liz Live Dailies, which you can get on my YouTube channel every day. There's some new content addressing different mental health issues, and my channel can be subscribed to at the Elizabeth126, or you can just push hashtag therapy on YouTube and subscribe to the channel, and you'll get new content having to do with love, life, relationships, change, all of the important things right there at your fingertips, all free advice. And if you see the bell here on the live Facebook, click the bell, and then every time I go live, you'll be notified. Okay, so that's a great way to keep up with Liz Live. So, and we do talk about some really cool issues, things that a lot of therapists, otherwise don't want to tackle. So today we're talking about trust. And, I don't know why I decided to talk about trust. It's just sort of something that came to me when I was thinking about what did I want to talk about today. And the issue of trust is so critical in relationships, and it's so misunderstood at the same time, because we tend to believe trust, our feelings of trust, are based on other people. Okay. And I think a lot of you probably go, I don't get what you mean. Okay. And what I mean is, we're always thinking about, can I trust my husband? Can I trust my boyfriend? Can I trust my wife? Can I trust my sister? And our focus for who we can trust and how we know that is always on the other person. And it's never really about us and our own instincts about people or trusting ourselves. And so we tend to chase this idea that in order to know who we can trust, that we have to examine everybody and analyze them and worry about that, rather than looking inward and kind of deciding whether or not, we trust ourselves. And I'm going to get into the deeper explanation of what I'm talking about. And trust is so important as a relationship therapist, because trust is the foundation of all relationships, whether it's friendship, whether it's, parental, a brother, sister, cousins, friendship, any relationship, the base of that is trust. Can I trust that this person will be there for me in a time of need? Can I trust that this person will keep my private business to themselves? Can I trust that this person has, my best interests at heart? And it's very hard to know that sometimes. You don't really know if we can count on that or not. And so we're always asking, well, how do I know if I can trust this person? How do I know if I can trust that person? How do I know who I can trust? And I really believe that the answer to the trust issue starts with ourselves, which is something that, it's very counterculture for us, and it's not usually what we talk about. We always talk about the other person and analyzing the other person. Are they trustworthy? And so on and so forth. So before I get into the issue of trust and how it is the foundation of all relationships and how we build that trust in our relationships, good morning, Jeremy. I want to talk about sort of the definition of trust, because I always like to define things so that we all know we're on the same page when we're talking. Trust defined as confidence, a reliance on integrity, justice, a confident expectation of an event, something entrusted to a person, to allow without fear, to believe, to have faith. Okay, so those are just some ideas about trust, about what they might mean. And sometimes we have to learn to trust other people in our lives, but a lot of times we have to trust our own lives and the things that are going on within our lives and within our hearts. And in this society, we're so focused outward that we really forget we don't even know what that means to trust oneself. So, what does it mean? How do you trust yourself? How do you know who you can trust? How do we understand that trust is not dependent on other people, but yet it's something connected to ourselves? Okay, so let me expand on what I mean by that. We all have built-in senses, right? We have the sense of touch, the tactile, to see, to hear, to smell, to see, to taste, right? We have those senses. And then we have, beyond all the five senses, we have what, some of us refer to as the sixth sense, which, I believe in very strongly. And that's sort of your intuition, your gut feeling. And that gut feeling could be coming from, your connection to the universe, past experiences, your relationship with God, whatever you believe that sixth sense is. I think it's a critical sense to kind of, keep in touch with and understand and work on and expand. So we have five senses, and then we have that sixth sense, which, us therapists refer to as your intuition. Like, what is your gut telling you, right? And what is the gut? What does that mean? That's just is it in your area of your gut? Do you talk to your gut? No, it's a tactile, physiological feeling when your body tells you something is wrong here, or something feels really good here, or something feels really right here. And I think that intuition is something that you really need to develop and to use to help you decide not just who you can trust, but what you can trust within yourself. Okay, so what I mean is, when we're worrying about, is this person trustworthy or is that person trustworthy? We really don't know. You really don't know when you're first dating somebody, or you're meeting someone, you're trying to build a relationship. You don't know whether or not that person is really trustworthy. You have no clue. It takes, as the definition says, time, experience, and lots of experiences to happen to us over and over again with the same person, so we can see the pattern of behavior and decide whether or not we can trust them. But bigger than that is understanding whether or not we can trust ourselves, and that our lives will unfold in a sense, in a way that they need to. And we can't always be in control of everything, which is kind of what we talked about in the last show, The Art of Surrender. Letting go and knowing when there's nothing else you can do. Learn the art of surrender. So we talked about that. So trust and surrender, I think, are very connected depending on how you look at them, because at some point in life, you have to learn to trust, again, in God, in the universe, in your sixth sense, whatever you believe in, a higher power, or just, general goodness in people, that you will always do the very best that you can in your circumstances, in your relationships, but you're not always going to get the outcome that you want in your relationships. So rather than thinking of it of an issue of trust, can I trust this person? Because that will be shown to you, within probably a handful of time, or a handful of, months dating someone or getting to know someone. You will be shown by watching and observing this other person's behavior and listening to your intuition whether or not this person is really trustworthy. But that ultimately comes from trusting yourself, not from trusting or not trusting the other person. It's trusting your own instincts and listening to what they tell you. And it's trusting in a greater, I guess, universe or greater guidance, whatever it is you believe, that has you on a certain path. So again, I think the mistake is that number one, we expect trust will just be there in our relationships a lot of times, and it's not. And then we get very betrayed and disappointed. But we look at it as something that other people have to prove to us or show us. And I think that that's kind of backwards. I think that we have to trust in ourselves, to learn how to trust in ourselves by listening to our sixth sense, which is created by all the five senses and experiences. And we listen to that and we follow that, and we don't fool ourselves about what our gut is telling us. And I guarantee you, if everybody did that, we wouldn't be betrayed very often, because we would get in and out of situations very quickly if we really learn to work on and trust that instinct. So trusting, again, it's not something that necessarily has to be, dependent on others to show us, but more so on our side to develop that sense to trust ourselves and what it is that we're feeling about another person or about another situation. And that if we make a wrong decision, we trust that it will be okay. We trust that we can learn our lessons from that. We trust in life, in a sense. Sometimes we have to trust in medical professionals. We have to trust our therapists. When I have to tell somebody, I think it's time to make this move or that move, and I feel as a therapist that I'm advising someone properly, they need to come back to me and say, you know what, I trust in what my therapist is telling me. I still trust myself more, because we should all trust ourselves more. But trust that this is happening for a lesson in my life, and that everything that happens I can learn from, and I'm not going to be so anxious and so freaked out all the time about worrying about who I can trust and who I can't trust. And I know it's kind of a weird concept to think about trusting others as something that comes from inside you rather than something that comes from observing others' behavior. And I'm not saying that that's not important, but I'm saying that it is something to ultimately depend on yourself to do, not onto others. Okay, I'm just looking at my notes here. So, how do you build trust in a romantic relationship? Okay, let's get down to the nitty gritty here. This is what everybody likes to find out. Who can you trust and who can you not trust? Who has integrity? Who does the right thing when no one's looking? Who cares enough about you to not lie to you or hide things from you that are going to hurt you? Who cares enough about you to consider you in the decisions that they make? Who shows up for you when you need them? And I bet if you think about who those people are in your life, they're very few. And don't feel bad if you only have one person that you can trust, because that's enough. It truly is enough. If you have one person in this life that really cares about you and that you can trust to be your confidant, to support you, to accept you just the way you are ahead of the game. You are way ahead of the game, because it's very difficult to find people who will do that for you, because people are very self-motivated. And they're always looking to get their own selfish needs met. Even if they're a great person, there's still that motivation of getting their needs met. So if you're evaluating people in your life right now and you're trying to figure out who can I trust, look inward and say, okay, what is this feeling that I have when I'm with this person? What is the pattern that I see when I'm with this person or when I interact with this person? Do they do what they say? I always say, look at words and actions. But ultimately, that sixth sense, again, which we don't really know how to define, we have to call it like that, the intuition, Some people call it like the higher, I guess like the third eye, or the, a higher level of energy that you can operate on, or you can connect to get messages from another dimension, or from spirits, or from angels, or from God. Or maybe it's just your brain that has a collection of experiences like a computer. And when you see something that has hurt you in the past, your brain computer goes like, "Mer, mer, mer." Remember this? We've seen this before. We've seen this before. We know how this one's going to go down, right? So that's really how I think you ultimately learn to trust. It starts with you. Trusting that you know what you need more than anybody else. And having someone in your life, just one person, who goes, yeah, you know what, Liz? You're right. You need this experience. You go for it. You want to do this? Here's what I think. I'm behind you 100%. You need to talk to me right now because you're going through something terrible. You want to be left alone. All of those things, that's developing trust. Trust in a friendship that people will listen to you and care about you and understand you and care about what you have to say and act accordingly. And people will show up for you when you need them. But rather than analyzing, focusing on that other person, well, can I trust them? I don't know. What will they do? I've seen blah, blah, blah. What is your instincts telling you? What does your gut tell you? And how can you test the trust, right? There's ways of testing the trust in relationships. Because if you don't have trust in a relationship, I don't care if it's romantic, familial, professional, if you don't have trust, you have absolutely nothing. You have nowhere to go. You have nothing to build upon. And that's why, when couples come to therapy after they've been, someone's had an affair, it's so difficult to rebuild that relationship. Not impossible. I do it all the time. But it's very difficult because once that trust is broken, how do you build that back? You have to start a whole new relationship in its entirety. It's very possible. I've done it. I see it happen, but it's not easy and it's not necessarily a guarantee. It takes a lot of hard work. So if you're looking at, let's say you're dating somebody brand new, okay? 'Tis the dating season. It is spring and summer, and, people are out and they're meeting each other, and I'm hearing about all these new relationships springing up within my clients, and people want to know, I don't know, Liz, you think I can trust this guy? And rather than me saying, oh, well, let's sit back and examine him, I'll say, what are your instincts telling you? What's your gut tell you right away? Yes or no? And usually that's the right answer. And so that is something that I really believe in, developing that extra sense that I feel is very related to touch, to tactile. It's sentient. It's something you feel, but you can't totally describe. It's not necessarily seeing or tasting or hearing. It's a feeling. It's that sentience that, okay, I'm feeling a tightness in my chest, or I'm feeling, this person makes me uncomfortable. Listen to that. Trust yourself more than anybody else. And if you develop that ability to be honest with yourself and to, follow your instincts, you won't be so concerned or worried about trusting other people because you'll know exactly what to expect. I know at this point in my life what to expect out of who in my life. I just know it. And I know who I can really count on. And I maybe have one person, two people that I know I can totally count on no matter what. And that's more than enough for me. But if you're building a new relationship, you have to look at, a couple of things. Does this person say one thing and do another that you've just met or that you've known for years? Does this person do what they say they're going to do? Or do they not return phone calls? Do they not, show up on time? Do they change plans at the last minute? Do they talk about themselves the whole time and not ask about you? Those are all little cues that, maybe I can't trust this person. Another sign of someone you may want to be a little bit skeptical of is somebody who operates solely out of ego. What does that mean? What is ego? I could do a whole show on what the ego is. So the ego is sort of like a human filter that looks at everything around it and says, okay, how do I protect myself? It's like a security camera for yourself. It's like this built-in security camera with two eyeballs looking around all the time. And it's looking for danger. It's looking for danger. And it's looking for hurt, pain, how to avoid pain, how to protect you, how to protect itself, the ego, which is, part of the self. And it's always out there looking around. It's really good 24-hour security surveillance, the ego. And so we have to embrace it for that, even though it causes a lot of problems. Ego causes a lot of problems. It's your number one security camera, and it's your number one protection, and it's your number one trust meter. Okay? So when you feel hurt, and you feel a little bit of pain or a little bit of offense or a little offended or a little slighted or a little uncomfortable, that is the ego warning you. Now, whether or not you listen to it, that's a whole nother story. But keep in mind that the ego is a very human, very, basic instinct. And it's not always right, but it'll give you the worst case scenario. Okay, so just because the ego says you're in danger doesn't necessarily mean you are, but it means you can take a step back and evaluate. My ego, my security camera is telling me something ain't right here. Let me take a step back and look at the situation and really, tune into what I'm feeling here and ask some questions of this relationship that I'm looking into getting into or that I am in, and seeing if it's really the best thing for me and if I can really trust it. And I think all of those things put together are how you build trust in all relationships. And again, actions have to meet words. Words mean nothing. Action means everything. When people say things to me, make promises to me, so I'm like, people might as well not even say it to me, because I am so disinterested in rhetoric. What I like is action. I like to see what people actually do, not what they say. Of course, I love conversation, and that's how we communicate. But when it comes to building trust, I'm not interested so much in all the things that people say to me. I'm interested in what they do for me or do in life, not meaning they need to serve me or anything. Okay. So again, if you're looking at, let's recap where we've gone, right? So we're going to, what is trust? We've gone there. We've defined trust, right? It's having confidence in something. It's knowing that what you're dealing with has integrity, that it's something that's happening for the best interest. Okay. And that you can count on someone being a certain way towards you. That's the definition of trust. Trust is the number one foundation of all good relationships. Without trust, there's really nowhere to go, especially in the beginning. Can't be friends with someone you don't trust, not real friends. You can't be intimate and romantic in a healthy way with someone you don't trust, because it'll be complete anxiety and misery the whole time. And the number one lie that we're told is that we are supposed to decide whether or not we trust someone based on other people and what they do only, when really it's a combination of that versus our own intuition and our own sixth sense that we have to develop, especially as adults throughout time, so that we trust ourselves. We trust not so much other people because we can't control other people, but we trust ourselves to make good decisions as to whether or not this is a safe relationship for us or not a safe relationship for us. We trust our own instincts. We develop our own instincts on trust that help us then make that decision as to whether or not this is something, a situation that we feel comfortable in, we feel safe in, we can count on this person or the situation. Okay, so that's where we have gone on this show. And we're talking about how to build that and how to look for that. Okay, now establishing trust in relationships is critical in the early stages. I think it happens right away. It happens right away. And we know, I think we know almost the instant we meet somebody what they're about. We may not know their personality. We may not know where they come from or anything about them. And we may not, want to rush to making any judgments. But we get that feeling, that instinct as to whether or not this is somebody that, someone that we feel good around. And if we feel good around them, there's a better likelihood that they're trustworthy. If we feel uncomfortable around them, there's a better chance that they're not trustworthy. And you have to trust yourself and your knowledge and your sentience and your experience as to whether or not you want to move forward with this relationship. And let me see. Catherine, good morning. Can't trust many. No, you can't trust many. And Catherine, if you're still out there, I'd like to hear a little more about that. Why is it that you are so, you're so skeptical on trusting somebody? Because I would like to hear about that. I will say that for myself, as I get older, and I spend more years, especially in this business of relationships and mental health, my instincts have, definitely grown and developed. And I don't trust probably very many people either, but I'm much less anxious about it because I enter a situation where, hey, I don't really care if I can trust someone or not because I trust myself. So I'm going to put myself out there with an open mind, and I'm going to dive into this experience. I'm going to dive into this moment, into this evening, into this dinner, into this, conversation with an open mind, but always with my antennae up, right? You always need your little antennae up to kind of sense what's going on. And sometimes deciding whether or not you can trust someone can be very confusing, okay? And so for the next half of the show, I want to talk about why figuring out whether or not you can trust someone is so damn confusing. Okay, so within us, within our psychological makeup, okay, there's something that Freud called the subconscious. Carl Jung called it the psyche, whatever you want to call it, the higher self. It doesn't matter. The soul, whatever you want to call it, there is a subconscious self that exists within us, within our, I don't know where it is, if it's in our brains, if it's in our solar plex, if it's I don't know. But there is that part of us that is connected and, kind of brings that sense of insight into our lives and into our decision making. And some people have that really well developed and some people don't. And then we have this other part that is the ego, for lack of a better term. And the ego is the humanness in us And it is based out of fear. It is not based in love. It is based out of fear, and fear of not getting our needs met, fear of rejection, fear of being hurt, fear of losing people, fear of not being good enough. It's all fear based ego, but it's essential for the human survival. So the ego gets a really bad rap, especially from the people who are more into like self-awareness and spiritual development. They kind of, look at the ego as something negative, but I kind of embrace it because I think that you need a balance, because while, loving all and having this totally open and trusting, attitude to the world is wonderful. And, I'm working on it every day, but the ego really helps keep that in check. And I think that when you have one foot in the human world, right, the physical world, and one foot in the sort of, I don't know, the unseen world, the unconscious or subconscious world, we have to figure out a way to make those two things work in tandem. And so if you just love and trust everybody and everything as being perfect and beautiful, you're going to get hurt a lot over and over and over again. So while that's sort of the ultimate goal, I think, of, the highest level of actuation or actualization, I think that the ego serves a very good purpose, because even though it's selfish and it's worried all the time, and it's fear-based and it's panicky and it's anxious and it's, looking for everything wrong with everything and comparing everything to us, it does serve a good purpose. And that purpose is to protect ourselves, to protect us. So if we can find that sweet spot between sort of getting in touch with our subconscious feelings and the sentient feelings that our intuition or higher self is giving to us, and with the ego's fear, we could be really well adjusted in this life. And we can really have trust in everything and all things, because we will trust ourselves to get out of situations that are unsafe. So both pieces are necessary in order to build that trust. If that makes any sense to anybody. Okay. So both pieces must be there in order to be in balance and decide whether or not we can really trust in something, and we can really be safe in a situation. So a lot of times I tell people, when I'm working with my clients, and let's say they're dating somebody new, or they're in a relationship and they're like really confused about what's happening, and they don't know if they can trust someone or not. It's usually because there's a conflict between the ego and the higher self, right? Some people call it the head and the heart. Some people call it the subconscious and the conscious. Some people call it the ego and the voice of God. Whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. The bottom line is there are these two competing voices. And a lot of times when people come to therapy and they're like, "Oh, Liz, I'm so confused." And I'll say, "Well, what are you confused about?" "Well, I really love this guy, or I really love this gal, but, I'm feeling like I can't trust them." And I'll say, "Well, gee, that's really conflicting. Let's talk about that. Let's separate out these two voices." And when we're separating the ego out from the higher self, or the, subconscious or higher, whatever you want to call it, that's when we have to do our work as therapists, and we have to get in there and see, is this just a reaction of fear to a new experience, or is this actually happening? Because again, the ego will lie to you, because the ego is ultimately afraid and scared and fear-based. So sometimes it will lie to you, and it will tell you to be afraid of things that you don't need to be afraid of. And the way to balance out the messages from the ego with the messages of the higher knowing, the higher self, the part of you that really knows, is to kind of sort all of this out. Okay, my gut's telling me I'm not feeling very comfortable with this person. I'm not feeling very comfortable in this relationship. My ego's telling me to get out and run, and my heart is telling me I should stay. What do I do? And so in those sessions, we will sit and we will sort it out and try and figure out what's going on. And sometimes we do discover that it's just a manifestation of fear from your ego trying to protect you, again, from things that have happened to you in the past. And sometimes it's very, very truthful and very spot on. And so I think a good therapy session with a good intuitive therapist can really help you sort those things out. And so if you're in a relationship or you're, experiencing something within your family or with one of your children or with a coworker or a friend or something where you're really just like, oh man, I don't trust this person, but yet I want to and I care about them and I love them, I think that's a good time to go see a therapist and just throw the situation out at the therapist and see if you can sort of make sense of what's happening and decipher whether or not you can trust this person or you can't trust this person, right? And sometimes our friends will see things that we don't. I'll say, well, I don't trust that guy. And you'll go, what are you talking about? He's a great guy. Well, I don't know. I just don't trust that guy. And then you have to, again, it makes it more complicated. Well, is my friend right or am I right? And this happens all the time. And that is why a lot of people come to therapy in the first place. And that is also why it's so critical that you learn to trust yourself. Trust the experience you're having. Trust that all is well. Trust that these are experiences for learning and that there are no mistakes, only lessons, and that you will go through this life and you will be hurt and you will be betrayed and you will be disappointed. But that doesn't mean that all situations will be hurtful and disappoint you. You have to know that trust that is part of life, and you have to be brave if you want to get anywhere with your relationships, and you have to take chances in them sometimes. But you also want to take calculated chances. You don't want to take chances with someone who's shown you already a couple of times that they can't be trusted. So as an example, if you're dating somebody new and they've canceled on you, 3 times in a month, I would say there's something going on there. There's a trust issue because they're breaking appointments with you already. And in the beginning, you're supposed to be on your best behavior. So unless they have a really good reason, it's kind of odd that they would break their promises to you so frequently, so early on in the relationship. And you might want to say, wow, I'm not sure if this person's really trustworthy. Should I bother? Because if they're breaking dates or appointments with you already in the beginning, where's that going? These problems usually get worse, not better. Okay, and I'm talking about in the very beginning. If in the very beginning you catch them going on a date with somebody else or, fooling around with somebody else and you've only been with them a few months, not a great sign, right, of what's to come. If you catch people in lies over and over again, we need to look at the reality of the situation and say, is this really somebody that I can trust? What are my instincts telling me? Forget about so much about what they're doing. Okay, I know what they're doing. I know what they did. They didn't show up 3 times or they, lied to me and they were out with other people. That's them. What am I feeling? I want to look in and understand what is my ego saying to me, because your ego is going to tell you to run and get out. And your higher self is going to tell you a different story. So it's very hard to sort of separate those conflicting messages that go off in your head. And that's when a lot of people call me and they say, Liz, I'm confused. I need help. I don't know what to do. I don't know if I can trust this person. And again, this can go on at any level. It can go on with the coworker level, the therapeutic level, the romantic relationship, the parent-child, so on and so forth. And if you don't learn to listen to your instincts in life, it's almost like walking around with a blindfold in a sense, because there's so much information that comes through our emotional sentience and our emotional system that we ignore because of so many reasons, right? We don't want to be alone. We're afraid. We don't want to lose this person. We don't want to go through the grief of it. There's so many things. And, unfortunately, I see it a lot with parents and children. It's more adult children that I, encounter, my friends, my clients that are, my age group, that can't trust their own parents. Or parents who can't trust their own children. Maybe they have a drug problem, who knows? Let me see what Catherine is saying. Hi, Catherine. I'm 53, and it took me until I was 50 to be confident enough to delete the untrustworthy from my life. Voila. Weights lifted. Live and learn. Trust my gut. It's okay to ditch those who only care about themselves and what's going on in their lives. Let's see more. Just because I'm strong doesn't mean this empath wants to deal with others who could care less about anyone else's lives. At some point in our lives, we must put ourselves first. Amen to that. And, Catherine, you're very, I would say you're very elevated and experienced in a good, healthy relationship with yourself. And I think at the bottom line of today's show, that's sort of what I'm getting at, that the relationship that and thank you for saying it, because I think that was really meant to be to help put this all together, that comment, that the relationship you build with yourself is the most important relationship of any other kind. Because when you learn to put yourself first and trust that that's okay, and trust your instincts and your gut and knowing what is good and bad for you, then you don't walk around in a constant state of confusion and panic. The confusion and the panic that so many of us live with comes from the inability to trust our own judgments. The reason people come to therapy to sort things out and to discuss conversations with me, discuss events in their life that are happening, is because they can't sort it out. They have so much going on in their brains, the tapes and the thoughts and the ego is clouding everything, that they can't just get to the bottom line feeling of, can I trust this experience or can I not? And how do I do that? And it sounds like, Catherine, you've mastered that. And we're always learning. And I think 53 is a good age to have it down. I'm 45 and, I would say I'm just getting there. Because I think for people, you call yourself an empath. For people, and what she means by that is people who really feel for others, people who really feel other people's pain and want to help everyone and want to rescue and want to care for, the nicest people in the world. The empaths do get into some particularly difficult relationship situations because they don't know how to take care of themselves. And one of the greatest lessons that I ever had was from one of the most selfish people that you could ever meet. My relationship with them taught me a little bit about taking care of myself, where before I was so, others focused. And I think I always will be. I'm a therapist. I care about other people. It's what I do for a living. But I am in the process of learning that it's okay to take care of me too, and that I deserve the kindness that I put out there to other people. And it does take a long time. I don't expect a 25-year-old to have any idea about what I'm talking about today. I think these issues are really more geared towards people in our age group, Catherine, because we have enough life experience, hopefully by then, to kind of get it. And young people are the ones who are out there getting hurt all the time over and over again because they're young. They don't have that thing developed yet, that human instinct about trusting. And again, I can't emphasize enough how trusting yourself is the number one most important thing that one can do for themselves. Trusting in the alignment of the universe, not to sound so out there, hippy dippy, but trusting that no matter what happens, you are going to be okay and you will have an opportunity to learn and grow from it. So quit panicking because everything is happening the way it needs to get you to where you need to be. And thirdly, I would say that then, of course, we do need to have people in our lives. Just one is enough, I think, that we can trust to be there for us, that won't judge us, and that will accept us and take us exactly as we are and not constantly try to push us or change us into being what they want us to be. And I think a lot of times it's done with good intentions when people are trying to force their will on us. It's done out of love, it's done with good intentions, but it doesn't feel very good when you're on the other side of it. So, you know, I really enjoy this conversation. I really love what you're saying, Catherine. As always, you always have such interesting things to add. And on that note, I am going to wrap up our conversation on trust. I will see everyone Saturday morning for Liz Live. Saturday, don't know what we're talking about, but we know it's going to be something important about life and relationships. Please hit the bell. If you're watching Facebook Live, if you're seeing this on YouTube later, please subscribe to my YouTube channel because I'm trying to move everything, all of my work over to YouTube so we can reach a bigger audience and we can help more people, which is the point of Liz Live. Liz Live is here to help. It's here to have conversations about things that are helpful to the human experience. And we want to help lift people up. We want to teach people how to live better lives and, you know, get all the things that they want to get out of life or how to deal with a particular situation that they might be going through today. So today the weather it's very gray here in Miami, which, you know, I'm not used to. It's been sunny all. We've had so much rain this month, and I have a very busy day with clients today. So I'm going to wrap this up, but I thank you all. Please don't forget to watch and share Liz Live. Please remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and everybody have a fabulous day and trust yourselves that whatever you're going through, you're going to come out of it. And if you feel like you need help, you can always, you know, reach out to a good therapist. You know, we don't get enough therapists don't get enough we don't get enough good press. You know, we're not all weird little analytical clinical clinicians. A lot of us are just really cool people that love going through human journeys with other people and watching the change process. So don't be afraid to give me a call if you need to talk. Okay, everyone, have a great Wednesday, a great rest of your week. Thank you so much for watching Liz Live, and I shall see you Saturday morning live at 11 a.m. Take care, everybody.